Jens Johansson really does look like he wants me to play test his new game, though.
Yeah, he's like,
he does.
hey, how's it going?
Still offering to the drum machine. You put another face on my heart. The stars singing, the streaming color. The eyes single repeating. Not gonna be held back by the rage's hour. No reaction without pain. I got far. Back pedal, angels gotta give up the throw today.
Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a music podcast where a group of friends gather together to share music with each other, an album at a time. It's like a little book club for music. Good times had by all. I'm PD Rave, and you can wiggle my electric wang arm any day.
Petey,
we-
for God's sakes, we're on Twitch. You
We're
can't
here.
say that.
Here with me is my team, my squad, my crew, my frets to my electric, my guitar, and my syntax. We've got David.
Take us into high orbit and maintain long-range scans.
We've got Matt.
The Gatorgan doesn't deal well with bends because all of the frets are segmented up.
And we've got Brett.
If you want to get the electric wang arm, you have to go to the tremolo bar. Pay $50.
Guys,
Yes.
we're on Twitch.
take you to the
Talk
back
about this
room.
Stuff.
I mean, I was originally going to talk about how, like, maybe if I wanted to make like a high-minded, like,
That's
classical
only
music
legal
album,
in,
I'd just throw blues in the middle of it. But
Yeah.
It's only
instead,
legal
PD
in 14
brought it down.
states.
Yes. We're here to get our syntax on in many ways. We're going to talk about an album. We're going to talk about some music. The album this week is provided by none other than Brett. Brett, what have you brought? What have you brought for us this week?
Well, what have I brought?
What hell have you brought for us?
What have you brought in?
So I brought the mid '90s in fusion, but I did it in a weird way. So I was wanting to bring some Allan Holdsworth. We'll describe Allan Holdsworth on his own. This isn't exactly Allan Holdsworth as you would expect, but I thought, what is a way that I could have some like extremely out there fusion jazz that's able to be digested by you guys. So I brought when Allan Holdsworth hung out with Yngwie Malmsteen and Dio's drummer and keyboardist brothers, the Johanssons, to do their little fusion thing with Allan Holdsworth, 1995-6, depending on the album release and what side of the lake you're on. It's the album Heavy Machinery, and we're going to have fun trying to describe this with words.
Yes. It's Heavy Machinery. Has nothing to do with Tucker or Otis, but it is named Heavy Machinery. Let's talk about expectations. David, what expectations did you have coming into this album?
I feel like I kind of cheated because I'm fairly familiar with the work of Jens Johansson. I have an affinity for keyboard players in rock and metal bands, and Jens Johansson is someone that I have been familiar with, not through Yngwie Malmsteen, but through the Finnish power metal band Stratovarius. And Allan Holdsworth is a guitarist that has influenced many of my personal favorite guitar players out there, the John Petrucci's and the Michael Romeos and the Steve Vais of the world.
And the Brett Hibbards.
And the Brett Hibbards.
And Eddie Van Halen's and the...
Never heard of him. So I'm certainly not afraid to geek out on some jazz fusion, and because I dig keyboardists and I dig Jens Johansson, I was very much here for this. There was no doubt I was going to enjoy the album. Spoilers, I did.
Yeah.
So if you don't know who Jens Johansson is, picture in your head what is a guy whose name's Jens Johansson and plays a keyboard and like there he is in your head.
Yeah.
You're there.
Yeah.
I love it.
He also looks in his Wikipedia profile picture. He definitely looks like he's at Gen Con.
Yeah.
You know,
Also, his Wikipedia picture is incredibly high res. You can zoom in right into his. You can see individual facial hairs.
Oh my God!
I am deep into his lips right now. Sorry, Twitch.
Okay,
You guys are weird.
Yeah.
This image
Matt,
is so-
as you recover from that,
4,000 by 6,000 pixels.
Yeah, I know.
Are you trying to get us TOS?
You know what?
No,
Yeah, I
it
don't
just
know.
comes naturally.
Exactly. Matt, as you recover from that, let us know what were your expectations coming into this album?
I know of Allan Holdsworth. I'd never really dove in for whatever reason. I think it's always just been one of those things where I think I should listen to him, and then I forget whenever it's convenient. I know that I often hear him mentioned in the same sentence as Al Di Meola, and kind of compare it as, well, yeah, they both play 30-second notes at ridiculous speeds, but Al Di Meola picks every single note, while Allan Holdsworth picks once per 8 bars.
God,
And I've never heard of the Johansson.
I actually understood that.
Wait, you
God.
never listened to Dio? You never like Rainbowed in the Dark? You never
Not knowingly.
Holy Divered? Like you never heard those awesome organs in the back of a Yngwie song, and you're like, what the hell's this Castlevania stuff?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
it's
him.
that guy.
That's Jens Johansson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our metal
Oh,
fans. That's
I haven't.
Jens Johansson.
Oh man,
He was kind of like one of the first big metal keyboard players.
yeah, he'd play solos back and forth. They'd round robin back and forth with Yngwie, which that takes a keyboard.
Yeah.
If Yngwie lets you solo, you're probably pretty good.
Like I don't even know how the hands do that because the guitar is hard enough.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I will keep my expectations short. I don't know. These are names that I know only because of you guys.
well, like nobody's expected to know who any of these people are anyway. This is weird stuff.
Yeah.
But let's talk about what this is musically. Brett, how would you describe this album musically?
Okay, so here we go. This is Square in the mid-90s, so you might recognize some familiar sounds if you grew up with Japanese video games. This was a music genre that was more popular in places other than America. So, like, you get a lot of synth pad. You get a lot of, like, synth pad that you would hear, let's say, behind a Sega Capcom or Neo Geo machine of the mid 90s. So you'll have like that droning in the background. Sort of because there's only 3 people playing this on this album. So and 2/3 of it is a synthesizer at times. So like there's a lot of that 90s MIDI sound going on here. There's not a lot of dirt on a lot of this album. This is not going to be like the super saturated, like they're getting these licks in or getting anything in with slop and just having a ton of gain. You can hear everything on this album being played. Yes, there's like there are a lot of the what can you do with a keyboard. So you have there's some electric piano thrown in here. There's some organ, some like pipe organ type sound. There's some there's some weird like 90s I'm playing in a Walmart keyboard sound too. The guitar, I think in this era Holdsworth was playing something that didn't have a headstock on it, but I don't know who was making it. He tended to like to play guitars that had his little guitar attached to it. But when he wasn't playing a guitar, he was playing this thing called a synth-axe. Synth-axe, mid-camel case, synth-axe. Google it, look for the part that says electric wang arm, and look at that. It's like 3 paragraphs or something.
It's
There's not
really
a lot of
camel
information.
case.
No, it isn't. It's
'Cause
just, they couldn't put a trademark probably on synth space axe.
Yeah. Because camel case would be if the first S was not capitalized.
The mix synth axe.
Exactly.
So the McSyntax is a strange machine. So we've had Syntax on this podcast before, but it was used as a MIDI controller for a drum machine by Future Man of Bela Fleck and the Flecktones fame. So this is the first time we have dealt with this machine. There aren't a whole lot of them out there. It's weird. Google it. Watch the video with the lady with the awesome haircut. Like, it's pretty great. It's expensive, but like many things, they go down in price in the future.
Guys, I just had the weirdest thought that will only appeal to this podcast and literally no one else.
Yeah.
Since Brett mentioned Beta Fleck and the Flecktones. What if the Wooten brothers did an album with the Johansson brothers?
Yeah.
I would listen to that.
I mean, you get your Nashville and you get your Sweden. Like, there's nothing better than those two tastes. Like, I would be all about that. Also, Victor Wooten, like, fighting for the bass end of the with the keyboard would be something. Because mind you, Bela Fleck's keyboard was only done with one hand because the other hand was playing a harmonica for the Flecktones. I would think that Victor Wooten would have trouble on the low end because holy crap, there's a lot of low end on this album.
Yeah.
But like other sounds that you would see on this album, if I run this down, these are metal guys with a guy who looks like your uncle playing a guitar in a way that you don't know. Some of it sounds like Castlevania. Some of it sounds like, like there's a weird blues song in here. So it's not going to be as far out as, let's say, a full-on prog album. This is listenable. There's phrasing, which means that the album takes a breath. So when the solos are going and ripping, they take a pause so that you don't get lost in the woods of the musical, like, going on around you, because there's a lot of going on around you. It sounds like there's more instruments going on because there's always that synth pad going on. It's like the organ's hitting the bars or something all the time. So it adds like an extra sound of an instrument. But at the end of the day, there's three distinct voices most of the time when the syntax doesn't sound like the organ or the keyboard. But like this is, as it goes, probably the most approachable that I could bring, which that's yeah.
Brett, let me throw this question at you regarding Allan Holdsworth. Would you say Allan Holdsworth is a guitarist that doesn't like the guitar?
Well, he's said publicly that, like, well, when he was alive, that he picked up guitar and then he figured guitar out by looking at it, and then like he figured it out, which yeah, he did. But he said if he could go back in time, he would play a horn.
Yeah.
In that way, he could play an Iwi.
Yeah, synth horn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The holophoner.
David, how would you describe this album musically?
Well, for the Record Breakers listeners out there that are a little bit more uninitiated in this genre, jazz fusion, I like to describe jazz fusion to people as what happens when rock musicians want to play something improvisational like jazz, but they don't actually want to play jazz. Brass instruments might show up, but you're still going to get predominantly guitars, keys, and synths, and maybe the occasional surprise prog saxophone. As Brett said, there are two metal guys on this album with a guitar guy that is just kind of a little too out there to be just a typical guitar guy. And this makes for some really fun jazz fusion.
Yeah, Holdsworth is his own brand. Like he's not. He, like you said, Al Di Meola is similar. Like Al Di Meola does things similar, but different.
But yeah,
only similar
mechanically.
As they both play really fast.
Yeah,
and you can hear
they're
every note
kind of
that they
virtuostic. Play. Yes, and that
they don't. It's not. There are. I can play really fast. You could play really fast too.
Yeah.
But I can't. Yeah, I can't play anything that fast
play
and have you
cleanly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like. Mm-hmm.
It's like people can rap fast, but not everyone can rap fast cleanly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How it works.
That's why they call it spit.
Yep.
because sometimes it gets gross.
And you have to have a distinct, I'm not saying a word, then I'm saying a word. I'm not saying a word, then I'm saying a word. That doesn't sound good.
No. Yeah. Matt, how would you describe this album musically?
If I was going to sum it up in one sentence, I think I would say it's jazz fusion solos over a heavy metal rhythm section. That's kind of the theme I went back to over and over, because like even the first song and throughout the album, before any leads start happening, you know, me being me, I always kind of dread heavy metal, and I hear it and I go, uh-oh, is this going to be the one? And then then you just hear this really cool jazz fusion solo, and it happens for pretty much every song. It's interesting that there's no bass other than the keyboard player himself, because there's a couple of tracks when it sounds really good. Even there's some fret buzz, which was a nice little touch. Not quite sure how if there's like the low action modifier patch from MIDI or how that works. I guess I need to look into that.
This was recorded on tape.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. This is old enough that this thing is old.
Nice.
Like, to think that these noises were like people were recording in a room full of like, just think of the equipment. They didn't even have an iMac.
Actual master
Okay,
tape.
if it was 96, it may have been on a DAT.
It might have been,
that, yeah.
but still, like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think mid '90s would be about the time that they would. Yeah, it's not quite straight up pulling the reels out, but close.
Stands
in a
for digital
different-
audio tape for the layman out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, good luck finding any of those in the world.
Yeah.
I know somebody who has two,
Yeah.
and he insists on using them instead of a digital audio workstation. So there's that.
Nice.
Of course he
Um,
does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Is he a horn player?
this album musically for me, from my perspective, I definitely heard the Castlevania, the Sega, the jazz fusion, and the heavy metal. There are moments of like the foundation is music for Home Improvement, the show, but with better musicianship on top of it, like. But like there were moments like that, but yeah, like Tool Time-esque, as it were, which is
That's a first for the record breakers.
Yeah.
I've never heard that described.
Yeah.
It's a you know, I mean, you know what
Yeah,
I'm talking about, right? Like that,
Uh-huh.
like that type of blues, like blues rock thing, kind of.
Yeah.
It's like Tool Time-esque, as it were.
Let's get everyone get set for Tool Time, man.
Yeah. So that's I think those are the couple of things that I would say I would pick out personally musically. But let's talk about this.
Nobody's talked about the main important thing. Ain't no music being sung.
Yeah.
This is a vocals-free adventure.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, it's normal for us, but yeah, it's vocal free. It's instrumentals all around, and it's definitely
This is musicians playing and doing stuff.
yeah, which is fascinating.
You
which
do
is
not
really
want to
cool.
hear what like 80s Holdsworth prog vocals are when you're not expecting it, because it is not good.
I
Hey,
do.
everybody.
Is it better or worse than William Shatner trying to croak out Iron Man?
So you know when you like have somebody play like ridiculous chromatic licks on a horn, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
like doing that vocally.
Oh, fun.
Jazz singing. It's like there's a reason why I don't listen to jazz that has vocals.
Yeah.
So the talking gets done by the guitar and the organ, and sometimes the drums. There's a little section where the drums do the talking.
Yeah. Let's talk about tracks, key tracks. Brett, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Well, joint ventures, it opens up, and it opens up in a way that like I can like when I found this album a couple weeks ago and I was listening to this, I was like, okay. And it has like that real like this could go in different ways, and then you get the overdrive organ, and then you get a guitar that is not doing what you would expect with those two things. It could easily have gone metal, like straight metal on some of this. It like the beats and the time signatures are crazy, but like it could have gone down Malmsteen Boulevard, but it didn't, and it was great. Joint Ventures tells you that things are going to be fine, and then it leads into Beef Cherokee with four-wheel drive. It's I had to, there's just something about the drums and the organ that made me happy. It took me back to a time, but probably the next song on Frozen Lake, where they have the electric piano and the wow wow wow, like it straight up was wanting me to put quarters into an MVS cabinet. Like it had a familiarity to the point where I looked up the Salty Bet playlist, which is a lot of old Capcom and Neo Geo machine stuff.
Capcom presents. Yeah.
I mean, there are sounds on here that I'm like, have I heard this in a video game, or is this a loading screen to like Capcom versus SNK? Like I don't. Well, like,
gonna take you for a ride.
I'm gonna take you for a ride. Yeah. But like there are some games that I have mentioned to you guys before that I have been like, this sounds like that 90s fusion sound. Like this is that like Battle Garega. This is a shoot 'em up game for the Sega Saturn. Like, and that is it. That I can't. And like
very big in Japan.
Like yeah, the like it makes me wonder like where in the timeline, because like those games were using probably similar hardware to record as they were using to record this album too. So there's a lot of very similar sounds, and it's a very digital of the 90s sound in some ways. So like it's easier for me to describe things in video game terms than it is in musical terms, because I know video games better than I know music, and I know music better than I can talk about it. But like that, none of that is going to get the point across. So Mission Possible is another track. Hey, you want to hear a fusion song that's kind of like blues? Next song, Good Morning, Mr. Coffee. Drum banger, fun synth. And on the Fritz, the licks just touched me in a place that was good and consenting. It was great. Like I could go through every one of these tracks and be like, they did a thing and it was cool, but I can't describe any of those things with words.
David, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
PD Rave, since coming on to the Record Breakers podcast, I've looked for ways just to kind of troll my good brother Pedro to break the format every once in a while, just to see where things go. And this album is a perfect example of what it means to break format. And I'm going to go off-road like the album cover depicts. Going to go off-road.
Depending on which one you're looking at.
Hey, that spanner's going off-road too.
Yeah.
In this case, for this album, I'm going to save my standout tracks for the conclusive thoughts. I'm not going to give them to you now. I'm going to save them for my conclusive thoughts. And I'm going to pass.
Mm-hmm. Matt, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
All right. Joint Ventures, the opening track. This was kind of the first one. The drum and bass start in, and the bass is that particular flavor of distortion that makes me think we're about to hear some heavy metal, and I start girding my loins. And then the organ comes in, and it's that overdriven organ, and I think, oh, it's kind of Deep Purple-esque. And then the guitar comes in, and I'm like, oh, cool, this is just some really great jazz fusion. Mission Possible, I like the rhythm in this overall. I was counting it out. It alternates between 12/8 and 10/8. And then once you get later in the song, while it's doing that, it also switches between kind of like swung eights and straight eights. And so it just keeps you a little off kilter, and that was really cool.
I prefer crazy.
Su-
I didn't actually notice that, but like the going from a
Boom.
to a
Ga da boom da ga da da ba da
Yeah.
boom. Ga.
that
Yeah.
it keeps you on your feet. You don't know it's coming.
Yeah.
There was something about that song that was just like they're doing something.
Yeah. Soup of the day. This was the one that made me think of I had to go look up and remember that, oh yeah, no, the bass player is the keyboard player, because it has this very specific plugged in bass sound, like a jazz bass fretted, but with low action. So there's just a tiny bit of fretting out, and it's all the way on the bridge pickup. T for 1.5. I liked this one. It was just a nice kind of funk groove, and also made me think of Sonic Level, maybe Marble Zone.
Hey, welcome
yeah.
to my world. Hey, that reminds me of a video game.
You're
Where do
speaking
you
my
find
language
that?
now.
Where
I
do
know.
I find the song that inspired me to remember that?
Speaking
sorry.
of which, Brett has been rubbing off on me too much, I guess, because macro waves. There's a particular type of electric piano sound that will always make me think of swimming around in Super Mario 64, and this track has it. And it's not only the sound, but it's the style of song in this case. It's that same kind of serene, peaceful, like, man, I could just go swimming in this with this cool, like, it's pretty much every digital piano these days has 2 electric piano sounds. I don't know why. That just seems to be the standard. Any run-of-the-mill will have 2 of them. And this is one of them, I think.
The Rhodes and
Whatever
the
this
Wurlitzer,
one is.
or whatever the other,
Yeah.
The other one.
the one that's super nasal and the one that sounds like you're the theme tune to Taxi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I'm still looking for some music out there that has perfectly replicated the snare drum in the first 2 Sonic games.
Yeah. Yeah, I will give it my own shout out to Mission Possible. That's the one I think that was the most tool timey. Like, I think it's just that rhythm just reminds me of that of a specific era of like bluesy TV music.
The bends on that, the guitar,
But not like all the way,
Yeah.
but not like all the way bluesy, like
Yeah.
In the Heat of the Night.
Exactly.
It wasn't a horn; it was a guitar. Yeah, the Tool Time guitar. Yeah,
Yeah.
God damn it! I'm gonna have to watch Tim Allen do shit now.
No, just watch it. Just listen to In the Heat of the Night instead.
Yeah.
This song's a banger.
Yeah, it is.
the heat of the night.
Good morning, Mr.
Don't do it,
Coffee.
Bubba. Sorry.
Good morning, Mr. Coffee. Was everything that you guys were talking about? It's also the one thing that I'll bring in is the fact that there's always that moment when that song would come up where I forget, I don't know what it is that they're playing, but it sounds like a triangle to me.
Oh, the ride cymbal that they hit. That chang, they hit it right up on the bell of the like ride cymbal before. Oh,
Yeah,
That did remind me of YYZ.
Yeah.
I was thinking that as that part as well. YYZ. Yeah, I was like, that was a triangle, and it sounded a little Rush-ish, a little Rush-esque.
Rush-ish.
Yeah.
Rashish.
I just had steaks, but I didn't have my sauce.
And we have a soup noodle.
Yeah, and I think those are the ones I want to give a shout out. I think everybody kind of covered everything else that were worth mentioning, but I wanted to give those specific shout outs. Let's bring it back around the horn and talk about some conclusive thoughts. David, what will be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
Personally, I genuinely dug this album a lot. It took me back to a time in the mid 2000s when online radio stations were still a thing, and I had prog radio and progulus radio as my little homes in a cold, dark world.
Were you on Live 365?
Yes, it was.
Yes.
And the thing is, I'm certain that I've heard this album before in passing, just over the years. I'm certain I'd heard it. I know the musicians. I know the acts they played with. I know the guys Allan Holdsworth has influenced. I'm certain I had heard this album before. And I can fully say that I enjoyed every song on this album. Every song, like Brett said, had a thing that was really cool. However, I think that the entire album in one sitting is a little much. If this were to come on in a playlist and I would hear one of the songs, I would be totally cool with it. These are all great individual songs to listen to. If you have a jazz fusion playlist, if you have a playlist of instrumental bands, or if you have a progressive rock playlist that kind of goes all over the place, yes, this will fit in perfectly with individual songs. If you enjoy this, I do recommend Niacin. If you do like this and want something with a little more guitar crunch, there's a band from Germany called Panzer Ballet that I think you might enjoy if you want something that's a little crunchier than this. Over multiple listens, I gave this album a good extra listen, and it just felt a little bit undercooked. And I get what this album is. It's not meant to be totally arranged and composed. I got that. But it got to be a little long by the end, which is why I say I loved all of these songs individually. You guys missioned Mission Possible. I loved T for 1.5. I loved On the Fritz. So if I were to hear these in a playlist individually, I would totally be down for it. But I would probably not listen to this album again in one sitting. But the songs, maybe even one or two of them in a row, absolutely. And I absolutely dug the entire thing.
Mm-hmm. I was just reminded, like, first of all, Live 365 still exists.
It does?
Yeah, because I mean, of course,
Wow.
no brand dies. MySpace still exists, for goodness sake.
That logo.
But
And
Mixer
second of all-
does not.
Yeah. I mean, for now, they'll use it
Yeah.
for something else. They'll call something else Mixer.
I mean, Napster's still around, like being Rhapsody.
Why come up with your own trademark names when you could just buy some ready-made ones?
Actually,
Rest in peace, WinMX. WinMX, rest in peace.
it would be more accurate to say Real Player is still around in the form of Napster.
Yeah. That's it. Also, that just reminded me of my days when I would play Second Life, and B, DJ on Second Life Radio on Live 365.
Man.
Oh, wow. I'm
Oh,
learning
God.
stuff today.
I would
There
be.
is so much PD Rave backstory that
I mean, there's.
I want all of this PD Rave backstory. I want PD
progenitor
Rave
Pete.
karaoke files. I want the PD Rave Second Life DJ stories. I want all of this PD Rave content.
There was a lot of like it was a huge part, but I was having a lot of fun there. I will say, one time I got into trouble with the other people running this thing because some people were complaining that I sounded like I was drunk on the air, which I never drank. So, or I'm like, I at least not when I was home and DJing that. So it was like, man, am I that mumbly? Like, it's like
Enunciate.
Enunciate.
Um,
Enunciate.
yeah, that was pre-podcasting, so all the things I kind of as much as I've gotten to this point, it was worse back then. And also the time I now remember the time I won a lottery in Second Life and won a bunch of Second Life money, and
Oh God.
and I actually paid a Second Life contractor to build me a house on the land I had set up for myself.
Amazing.
I remember I had a beachfront property in Second
Nice.
Life.
I'm just getting more and more depressed.
You were the El Presidente of Second Life.
Yeah, it was like it was a brief moment of time, but it's just weird to like recall those events and put them into real words and be like, that actually happened. What the fuck? Those were
That's
things.
amazing.
But that being said, let's move on. Matt, what would be your conclusion on this album as a whole?
I really enjoyed it. Another kind of recurring thing that came into my mind was I was kind of wondering if I liked it on its own merit or if it's mostly just because I knew that I was listening to Allan Holdsworth. But at the end of the day, I mean, if this is the thing that gets me that much closer and to enjoying heavy metal, then I guess it's worth it. Because yeah, it was great. I enjoy jazz fusion, and I love overdriven organ.
Overdrive that organ.
You know, I mean,
Guys, we're on Twitch. You can't say that.
when you're in the deepest of purple,
Yeah.
you overdrive that organ.
Oh yeah.
I think my conclusion would be that there's a lot to chew on here. There's a lot of gristle on these bones, like, and it is fascinating
I
to
actually
kind of
found
like,
it to be pretty lean. I dug it.
yeah. I think it lean in music. I think as far as like the stuff, but like as far as like things to know. And genres to know if you're not as well versed in like prog and jazz fusion, it can be a bit much, especially as like David said, as an album to consume in its entirety. But I think it's cool. I think it's a lot. There's a lot to really like about this. There's a lot of really cool like moments, and it's to just kind of like you can still put it on in the background, and it's not gonna like it's not abrasive. It's not gonna attack you. It's still enjoyable as like music to like work to or to kind of like have in your headphones or have on some speakers or for your drive. So it is very involved music, but it's not overwhelming. So I think that's what its strength. But yeah, I think it definitely. I can definitely understand how maybe it might be better for a lot of people in doses. Maybe tracks just in your playlist, but yeah, it is something to behold. I will say. Yeah, last but not least, Brett, what would be your conclusion on this album?
With it, this album is probably the most accessible ways of me to give this album to people. But I don't know that like asking somebody to sit down and absorb that'd be like sitting down and trying to listen to an entire like symphony, because it kind of does the thing. The amount of things per second going on this album that you have to either follow or not is less difficult than some albums. So I wouldn't be too afraid because it still sounds like music. Like that's the thing about this. There's a lot of stuff that goes in between the progressions, but they play the chords. They lead somewhere. There's it's not just straight, like they're not it's Holdsworth probably wrote all this out too with his weird alien notation system too. That's the other weird thing, because he there are things that on here that even like normal musicians would have trouble figuring out, because he's just playing a lot of the chords and the licks that he would be playing you'd have to write out every individual note in those chords to name those chords sometimes. Like there's no quick and easy name for those chords. He's doing advanced things because he was a spaceman. He was brought down to Earth. The yellow sunlight taught him how to play guitar in his sleep. It's that stuff. But you can enjoy that, even if you don't know what's going on, even if you never cared what an electric wang arm was.
But why wouldn't you?
I mean, this is an album that we won't get another Synthax weird heavy metal Allan Holdsworth fusion. So I'm happy this exists. This isn't a perfect album. It's a pretty great album. But it's not supposed to be anything that it's not. This is homework that's like, this is like when you watch the good Reading Rainbow episodes in school. It's still, you're at school, but you're watching, LeVar Burton show you how he and Michael Dorn get makeup put on. Like, it's the good episode. So like, if you're gonna have to take your medicine and learn like other kinds of music, I figure this is probably a good way to do that. Like, it's inoffensive. You can put it on. You'll be like, that's some weird shit, but it's still music.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then you start hearing and it's like, this weird shit's kind of good.
And I've heard some of this stuff before somewhere. Where have I heard this? And then you hear like, then you're hearing it, and then you go to check out at a gas station. You're like, wait, did I hear the Sonic rings get picked up? And then you're like,
there's a gas station near me that has those.
It scares the shit out of me.
I love it.
So loud.
Yes. Yeah. It's like, did I just step on something? Am I gonna have to go collect things?
Yeah.
Gotta blast process my way through it.
Yes. Let's blast process our way home. Yeah, those are our thoughts on and conclusions on Heavy Machinery. Now we get to the main event of the evening. We get to our haiku reviews, the moment we've all been waiting for, where we bring the 575. We bring it all into some poetic forms. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Haiku numero uno. David, what is your haiku?
Petey, you go first.
Okay, I can do my haiku.
I mean, mine is ready.
Just reverse.
A lot going on, all of it fascinating, yet tough to digest. David, what is your haiku?
Strong improv fusion. Great as bite-sized single tracks. Albums a tad much.
Mm-hmm. Matt, what is your haiku?
Virtuosos play jazz fusion over hard rock. Very much enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. And Brett, what is your haiku?
Alan does his thing. Boodles and deedles galore. Glad to share with you.
Mm-hmm. And those are our thoughts on Anders Johansson, Yen Johansson, and Allan Holdsworth. Allan Hansen. Allan Hansen and Don Avidan, the Goom groups. Allan Holdsworth, Heavy Machinery. Those are our thoughts. You can, of course, listen to this album on our Spotify playlist. Play Record Breakers the home game. Do your due diligence and your dude diligence. Follow along at home. Keep up with us. Do your homework. On that Spotify playlist, presumably, is next week's record, and it's going to be provided by Matt. Matt, what have you got for us next week?
Folks, I think it's time. I'm bringing the Grateful Dead and their album American Beauty.
That was Cowpop. Or Cowbop, sorry.
Cowbop.
Yeah.
Cow Pop is something else. So look forward to that next week.
How many drummers are on this album?
2.
All right.
Nice.
That still doesn't beat King Crimson.
It does in length. Or in longevity.
But yeah,
Doesn't.
we'll We'll get dead next week.
To this point,
yeah.
the Grateful Dead may not last as long, but
Yes.
this is gonna. I think this one was hard, kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna get dead next week, but until next week, let's live on this week. And you can of course find us all over the internet. David is at Call Me DJM. Matt is at MRiddickW. Brett is at HibbityBirbird, HIBBI2YBIBBARD. I'm at PD Rave. The show's at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com. RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com. Rebelly.net for this and other shows. Rebelly TV on YouTube and on Twitch. Follow us on Twitch. I'm trying to get to 50 followers on there.
Join the Hydro homies.
Yep. Just join us over there. Yeah. Find us everywhere. Like, share, subscribe, do all the things you can. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, all the places. Until next time, hasta los huevos.
Toodaloo.
Hashtag find Luke.
Lay it a
Still
course
on
for
the
Starbase
search.
305, Warp Factor 8.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.